Hey, wanna make this? Alright, cool. I'm Chris Polozois, a professional freelance artist whose work sounds like this, and this. But you probably know me from. So here are the footnotes to encapsulating 2016's cyber-industrial sound. Lots of drones, weird machine sounds, always low pass, sweeps, lots of sweeps, and more sweeps, low sine waves, filtering and distortion, and reverb. So the first thing I do when approaching this sound is I look for a kick that has a good low-end punch, but also a good transient up in the 100 to 200 hertz range. Ooh.
Hey, that's pretty good.
What? Oh. So the reason we want that 100 to 200 range is because when we low pass it, it'll act as a good punch to our low end, and we can accentuate that with Bittersweet. For those of you unaware, Bittersweet is a free transient designer and we'll be using it a lot in these videos. Here you can see that with Bittersweet, the signal is more of a peak, a dynamic slap, and with it off, it's more of a brick. So now we get to the first kick pattern, and I've decided that I want something a bit offbeat going on. Our first pattern is then going to act as a build to the main rhythm. Then we're going to automate a low pass to help evolve the kick. With our kick out of the way, we can finally move on to our bass set. Oh, I knew you'd like this. This is a little Serum skin I put together inspired by Doom 2016's visual aesthetic since it's my favorite in the series. It's not finished just yet, but it should be free and ready to ship by the time this video goes live, so you guys can pick that up in the description. So now I'm going to start accenting the kicks with some subnotes, really low stuff. Another huge step in getting that punchy sound we want is some pretty harsh sidechain. I'm going to throw on a compressor and route it to my sidechain signal. Then we're going to yank our threshold all the way down with a short attack and release. Back in Serum, we're going to throw a bit of noise onto our sine wave. We don't need a lot since the multiband compressor inside of Serum is going to pull it up. Then, we're going to use the default low pass filter to get that noise under control. We can use an envelope with a quick transient to give the sound more of a punch right at the start, and we can achieve that by putting it on things like Oscillator A's octave range, the cutoff on our low pass filter, and even the level of our noise. Now, this is going to be where a lot of the tone comes from. Camel Crusher is a great free distortion plugin and I use it all the time. I ended up settling with this one because I had kind of a whistly sound, and then it's taken to the next level with a bit of extra processing from Data Life's Sausage Fattener. Can't forget Virtual Riot's Fat Rack. And that's pretty much all there is to it. So the frequency giving us that whistly tone was kind of bothering me. I decided to turn it down a bit with an EQ. Not too much, because the draw of the sound was the whistle, but it doesn't need to be that ear-hurty. And then we can use a bit of high-end boost to really crispen up the sound. We're gonna go ahead and low pass this too for the time being. At the beginning of the track, I wanted more of an ambient build, kinda hinting at what's to come. So while this is still building an atmosphere, it feels empty. I went ahead and duplicated the track and cut out all the low end before slapping on some reverb. Now we're going to start automating our low pass just like we did with the kick to help build tension. Our elements are always building towards something bigger, more intimidating. Moving on, I wanted a gritty, crispy center, so I went ahead and dropped a sine wave into Serum. Something interesting I noticed when playing around with the sound was that putting an LFO going in reverse on the cutoff while unchecking the noise box was really morphing it and evolving it in a way that I like. Then I went ahead and low passed it as well. The next sound I added in was this kind of cyber sweep I kept hearing in my head. So using the same process from our first sound, I decided to mess with an LFO and see what I could achieve through automation. In my head it was stereo spread too, so I threw on a saw wave with a bit of detune to help thicken it out. Camel Crusher for tone. So this plugin is actually really cool. It's a stock Ableton one called Erosion, and what it allows you to do is mix in noise and sine frequencies with your instruments. Virtual Riot rep again. All this compression was kind of removing the sweep factor that I wanted out of the sound, so I automated the gain control on a utility to get it the way I wanted. And of course, I'm going to low pass this as well. With it being low passed, it lost some of the crisp I wanted early on, so I used another instance of erosion to get it back. The initial sweep actually sounded so good to me that I decided to use it in a few spots throughout the buildup. Here's a look at what we got so far. Now, it doesn't sound bad, it just needs more going on. It's all about filling space and pushing the envelope, so I went ahead and duped a new MIDI track. Here's a bit of sound design 101. When mixing two sine waves together at high contrast octaves, one really low and one really high, adding distortion to them will actually create this whiny sound. Check it out. Since this is a mid-synth, it doesn't need any low end. Now, the rest of this process is just me trying out new things and messing with the sound to see what I can get. I really liked this sweet spot, but it wasn't pushing through the mix enough, so I went ahead and accented it with a notch EQ. I wasn't too entirely sure what I wanted to do for a pattern, so I started playing with random LFO shapes. I ended up settling on something completely random, but something I really liked. The sound still felt dry, so I slapped on some reverb to help smooth it out. Then decided to automate a low pass notch to build the sound from low to fully prominent. Now we're getting into drones, background noises, reverbs, and so on. There's not really a specific way to make or do these, they're very open-ended. Using samples, designing them in a synthesizer. I mean, you could even sample a fart and just stretch it out with some reverb. It's all about your creativity. The real key points with this specific one that I'm creating is that it's high-pitched with a bit of low-pass automation and reverb doing quick staccatos. Throw in some general drones for space. Now these are my secret sauce. It's a big folder of various machine sounds that I use in every Doom track to really drive home that metallic sound. I really liked how this one sounded reversed. It had a nice sweep to it. Then we're gonna smash it with a Doom compressor. Thanks, Jeff. So because the sound was being destroyed, I actually had to use another utility to automate the gain and turn it back into a sweep. It definitely needed a lower drone, so I just drug a sample I had sitting around into the track. Not that the sound was bad, it just wasn't evolving as much as I wanted. So I started playing with the various wavetable filters inside of Serum to see what I could get by experimenting with automation. Another thing I'll touch again on in later videos is about automating the release time on your sidechain compressors. Dragging the release time up to a pretty high value like 0.25 on the very first hit can really give it this impact that I like a lot. I had this glitch effect sitting around and decided to try and incorporate it into the track. Another fun trend in mixed Doom music is 8 to 16 bar risers increasing in pitch. They're all over the place in his tracks. Again, there's no specific way to go about creating them, it's strictly up to you. On the master track, I have a utility I automate the gain on, with the lighter parts sitting at -17 and the heavier parts sitting at -12. It helps the drops and main beats feel all that much larger. Initially, I had it at the start, but decided it was better to have it transition when the main beat kicks in. Now, looking at Pro L2 and Span, there are elements we want to be hitting with both. We want to make sure the drum transients are hitting our limiter the most out of anything, and we want to make sure our sub is level with, if not higher than, our high end. And here's our final product. So now that we've covered the intro and build to our track, we'll be expanding on it in the following videos. If you enjoy these kind of tutorials, let me know through analytics. Subs, comments, likes, it all helps me understand if a certain video type is worth the time it takes to throw it all together. And with all that said and done, stay tuned and rip and tear.